left the camera running. Okay, so strings are off of it, and it appears that it's just the either springs or I think just the springs are too loose. Alright, well that's what it looks like, is these screws are way screwed out for where they should be. Which means whenever you put tension on the other direction, it's going to just, you know what, the other thing, since this is supposed to be a non-trem, but if he decides once he starts playing this thing more, he wants to let it dive, the springs should be parallel with each other. So we're going to go ahead and fix that right now. Because if you go ahead and do a pull up on this, if it's a floating trem, spring gets loose and then spring pops off in the middle of a show, ain't good for nobody, because there's nothing you can do. And once again, take a look close at that. You see how the saddles are all kind of like not, each saddle is not level. One's going to be higher than, one side of the saddle is higher than the other. You do not want that. You want the proper geometry of your strings and your neck and everything, or otherwise you're going to be out of tune and or having tuning issues. So I'm going to go do a preemptive strike there and get those all to the proper height, at least level. Time to shame Fender and or the company that sold this guitar. Whenever you buy a guitar, like if you buy a guitar from Sweetwater Music, typically the guitar in the picture that you're buying is the one that is photographed. This guitar I don't think came from Sweetwater, because there's all kind of that plastic crap left around all the knobs and the screws and stuff like that, and that's what I just pulled out that I didn't throw away, and I halfway decided, you know what, I'm going to make an example. That's all that plastic crap that goes over the pickguard that really should be taken off before it's sold and given over to the customer. So there you go. Alright, moving on. Now that we adequately shamed the seller of the guitar or manufacturer, and clean up these frets here, a little bit of 1200 grit fret eraser, make it mud. Okay, so we have that little bushing installed. Now the thing I always do on every guitar that comes down here is, because wood shrinks and things settle after they're tightened, just snug up these nuts. It just helps with tuning stability. So how do I wrap strings on a Stratocaster? Well, typically if it's going to be a fixed bridge, in other words the springs are going to lock it down. I use about 4 fingers at the 5th fret, and bend and make a Z out of the string, and then I tighten it down. I always put guitar grease on the nut and on the contact points. Take my finger off. Contact points of the bridge. So that's how I string guitars, and I leave the loose ends on, especially on the electrics, because you never know when you have to change the strings or loosen the strings again, or take them off, and you don't want to be stuck. So I'll finish doing this. I'll be right back. So finally, as we're going up here, I have 2 turns, 2.5 turns, about 3 turns. Once you get to your plain strings, unwound strings I should say, you want at least 4, 5, 6 wraps as you go up, and that's just because the plain strings have nothing to grab onto. So I'm using my 4 fingers and a bit of my thumb to get a feel for where I want that to be. You always wind each wind under the previous wind. Alright. It's in tune. Wow. No, it's not. So, how do we stretch the strings in? We're back to that same familiar problem. Remember the string, or the spring claw in the back? Lifted the bridge off again. So obviously I didn't take it in far enough. Crank that sucker in. 2 full turns. Flip it over and take a look at it. Alright. She's down. Now we're going to stretch our strings. What I basically do is hold the string to the neck, and I just pull up, give it a tug, and do it for each string, at least on the wound strings. You can give it a pretty big tug without breaking it. Hi, Mr. Train. Spewing coal dust all over my car again. You're not going to do it as much to the unwound strings, because there's really not much stretch in them. Alright. The other thing I do is I'll come over here and stretch this part, just because that needs stretch too. Alright, there's another train. And somebody's wanting, oh, that's my beautiful wife saying okie dokie that I was making chicken for dinner. Alright, so I was filming the pickup height adjustment and my battery ran out. Didn't realize it, talking to myself down here. And I've got all these. Yeah, there's actually just a little bit that we can do here. These really cool things, you can get them at StewMac or you can get them on Amazon. They're brass, so they don't affect your magnetic. It doesn't feel like you're running over a magnet, and makes adjustments way easier. Has all the gauges that you need for a bass or for a guitar. In this particular case, this really thin one, I've never run across anything I need for. Maybe a cigar box guitar, or maybe if you're using a Telecaster with Nashville tuning. But for your standard guitar, your standard 6-string guitar, the 2 in the middle are what you want. So this one for the bass side, the thinner one for the treble side, and that's good. That's good. You just barely feel it squeeze when you go underneath it, and you're right there. So with that, I'm going to go ahead and put the backpack on. Our string choice was brought to you by Ernie Ball, made in America, and brought to you by the letter T for trains. So we're intonated. We got all that heap of plastic off it. There's some that is still under the screws, but I'm not going to take the pickups off to get the little plastic bits out of there. No need to mess with that. I got out what I could get. And yeah, so you guys take care of each other. Have a great week. Check us out on Facebook on Stringman Guitars, and of course please subscribe to my channel. I appreciate it. Thank you.